Ladies and gentlemen, good evening. I've known my guest for longer than either of us would care to remember, but what has always struck me about him is that yes, he's in the business of dreams. He's made blockbusters, he's made films like Mr. India, which have got everyone dreaming, but he is also himself essentially a dreamer. I don't know how many of you know this, but he had a really successful and prosperous career in London. His uncle, Devanand, sold him the dream of becoming a movie star. He gave it all up, came to India, became a star, acted in films, decided that what he really wanted to do was directing, followed that dream, made big hits, then decided perhaps he would do it abroad. He went abroad, made even bigger hits. He now works at his own pace. He does what he wants, but he never ever forgets that he's a dreamer. Is that fair?
I'm not a filmmaker.
You're not a filmmaker?
I'm not a, when I was 24 as a chartered accountant,
yeah,
I realized that there was one word that I was going to drop for my life.
And that was?
Well, Delhi, mein all the middle class people, he's doing very well for himself. So when they said he's doing very well for myself as a chartered accountant, I said, that's not what I want. So I dropped the word career. I've never ever followed a career, ever. I said, that's one word. I'm just going to go on an adventure of self-discovery. So how many people in this room have been on an adventure of self-discovery and give up everything else? Anybody? Oh, there's one hand. Come on, guys.
One brave
right,
person.
You see? So go on an adventure of self-discovery and... No, that word I can't use. Everything else.
Use it.
Right? Okay. So, yeah, no, that's...
Yeah.
Particularly that's what people say. But you haven't made a film for some time. What have you been doing? I said, I've been discovering myself.
Yeah.
True.
But that's your career, no? You walked away from money, you walked away from security. It's been just an adventure, and you do what you want to when you want to. That's fair?
You know, Meera, you won't remember, once we were sitting in London, I was going to buy this very expensive house, and I was going to borrow a lot of money.
Yeah.
So she looked at me carefully, because Meera has known me for years. And she said, if you borrow that kind of money, take that kind of debt, you won't be a free man. Do you remember? He said, don't do it. And so I didn't do it. Right. I would have been a very rich man. That house is worth about 200 times what it was, Meera. You made me poor. Right? Okay. Right.
You followed your own heart and your own dream, but you've always, because I think you have an international perspective and an Indian perspective, a filmmaker's perspective, and yet an outsider's perspective, you've always been, it seems to me, one of the few people who's been right about the direction in which the entertainment industry is going globally. I'm trying to remember which city it was. We were at an IFA Awards symposium, and I was moderating. And I said to you, what's going to happen? And you said the future of cinema is not Hollywood, it's not India, it's global cinema. A day will come, and I remember this quote exactly, when Spider-Man will swing from his web, come down, take off his mask, and it won't be the kind of Peter Parker you're used to. It'll probably be an Asian guy. And at that stage, the idea of a superhero who had an Asian origin seems so unlikely. It may not have happened with Spider-Man, but it's come to pass. The whole Marvel universe is full of people from all over. Black Panther, which has taken black superheroes who we never thought were possible, is the highest grosser of these superhero films. So tell us where you see the world going.
I think the winds of change are coming,
yeah.
and they're coming harsher and stronger than we believe they are. I think even now, when we talk about Marvel movies, we talk about Black Panther, it's still a white man's point of view.
Yeah.
It's still a Western point of view because the white man has controlled us for so long. What going to happen in that context is that Asian films, African films, all of them will come from a different narrative. The narrative has to change. In this world, in many, many ways right now, the narrative is still Western. That's where the winds come from. When the narrative changes, the true change will happen in culture, right? Of course, we'll come to a global culture. That's what I said to you at that time, 20 years ago. That we'll still be making Spider-Man, but Spider-Man, when he takes his mask off, will be Chinese. He won't be white.
Yeah.
Right? And that's happening now. But where are we going now? I think we'll talk about that. I want somebody to challenge me. Technology, you see, storytelling is the same thing, right? You tell a story, you tell a story. It'll never change. We're always telling stories. Somewhere the moralities of story change.
Yeah.
Meena Kumari showed her ankle and everybody said, hi, 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 kya kar rahe ho? Everything, that changes. The sense of morality of what it is, that changes. But what changes constantly is technology. And technology is the way that we disseminate stories to the rest of the world. And that's becoming huge.
But see, when you talk about technology, there are two senses in which you can use that word. You can use it in terms of the way in which you shoot, and you can use it in the way in which that content is distributing it.
Yeah.
Are you using it in both senses?
Both sense. Both sense.
So just elaborate on that.
Yeah, well, if you say the way we shoot, the digital has made films much cheaper. I can do my visual effects in camera. You know, when I was making Mr. India, we used to run the negative with little, we used to call the old Mitchell cameras, jo kabhi use hi nahi hote.
Yeah.
So we used to get them. Then my DOP would go back and then mask a bit of the frame. We used to mask the same piece of film 4 times.
Really?
And I used to have puppeteers coming with the whip that used to beat up Sri Devi. That was actually a puppeteer with a whip that went around like that. That's how we made Mr. India, you know.
Yeah.
Now I don't have to do anything of that. The digital has allowed me to do anything that I want on screen. And the digital has allowed me to do it while I'm filming.
Yeah.
So my latest film that I did, I actually had people, I could see what was going on constantly without having a green, I never had a green screen. Those of us that actually understand technology of filmmaking know what a green screen is.
Yeah.
So we don't, it's so much cheaper, but it's in the way that we're going. The metaverse is the way we're going. The metaverse for our business in India can be $1 trillion business if we get it right.
How much?
$1 trillion.
$1 trillion?
$1 trillion. You watch.
How much are in crores? I can't even think
Yeah,
about
it's
that.
about so much in crores that we can buy the GDP of India, right? But it's something I said on the first time that I got on to FICCI, I said, Indian film business is worth 10 billion. सबने कहा पागल हो गया यार ये ठीक है, you're a filmmaker and people will really, ठीक है. Then I remember Mukesh Ambani calling me, how did you work that out?
Yeah.
And I said, how it worked out. So the very next year, he was a keynote speaker. He said, it's 100 billion. I'm saying it's $1 trillion. It's $1 trillion because of the way we can disseminate and analyze. Analyze and break up our content. So it's not just film. Film is going to be a small part of it. It's the creation of content. You know, there is this K-pop group, the biggest pop group in the world is Blackpink, this Korean pop group. And
BTS.
they created avatars for the metaverse.
Yeah.
So I was watching an interview with them. They said, look, I have to sleep, I have to eat, I have a private life. My avatar doesn't have a private life. They're there 24 hours, they can be performing, they can be answering questions. So there's a different world coming in which we have to catch the tsunami of. And that's worth content. I'm not just saying film, I'm saying content, the creation of content is going to be worth $1 trillion. I'm saying that, and it will be.
Okay, so let's take the general way in which we understand cinema or entertainment. A director hires a crew or a producer does it. He shoots a film. That film is then edited. And then it's disseminated either in cinemas or on streaming or on television or in the old days on DVDs. You're saying that that model may continue, but it's going to go far beyond that?
Say it again, sorry.
You're saying that that model will continue, but the future will go far beyond that?
Yeah.
Explain that.
You know, Mr. India, how many of you did not see Mr. India? One? No, just one? One. Okay. When everybody says to me that Mr. India was India's first superhero film, it wasn't. It was a kind of a superhero film, but the thing that keeps Mr. India being popular, it was a universe of characters.
Yeah.
People we forget. There was Daga, there was Teja, there was Mogambo, there was Hawaii, there was like 20 characters. There was Calendar. In fact, if you go to Bangalore, there's a restaurant called Calendar Khanado.
Really? Okay.
You know, yeah.
I didn't know that.
So it was a universe of characters. So what we have is what Marvel is doing is creating a universe of characters. Each character then becomes an avatar of its own. Each character develops a personality of its own. So we are heading in a different way where we take a certain story, like Mahabharata.
Like what?
Mahabharata.
Yeah.
Mahabharata is a universe of characters, right? Mahabharata in itself can be a huge business. If I was making Mahabharata today, or if I was making something like this today, I would open the world I create, I would open it up to anybody. You take this world, you create a world upon my world, but as long as you let others create a world upon your world. And then what you're doing is you're following nature, you're creating a rainforest. Out of that rainforest, it starts to grow on its own.
Yeah.
And just, I was at a conference of IP and somebody asked me, what do you tell your lawyers these days? I said, in the future, can you get me IP for 15 minutes? That's all I need, 15 minutes.
That's it?
Not 75 years, 15 minutes. If I cannot disseminate my product in the metaverse in 15 minutes, then somebody else will take over.
Okay.
Okay.
We're talking about the idea of a metaverse, of a family, of a universe, and we're talking about India. As far as I know, it's never been done in India. Has anyone taken like a character from, say, Mr. India or any other film and built another film around him? I don't think so.
Too much echo.
Yeah, I know. The audio is not great. I don't think anyone has built a universe around characters in India before, have they?
No, it's easy to do. If you make Mahabharata, you got to...
So let's take Mahabharata as an example. Assuming I came to you with an unlimited budget, and I'm not going to be able to do it, but maybe Mukesh Ambani can do it. There are a lot of people who can do it. And we gave you the Mahabharata and said, create a universe around it. What would you do?
I would just create a platform called Mahabharata.
Yeah?
Yeah, and I would tell individual stories.
In streaming, in cinemas, what else?
Streaming, cinema, multiverse, any new technology that comes. And I would allow people to create their own Mahabharata. We can go back. There was no one Mahabharata. The Gutenberg press came in, and the moment you had to publish it, you had to create one Mahabharata. Usse pehle, Mahabharata was a spoken idea.
Yeah.
There was a million Mahabharats. Everybody would have their own interpretation of the Mahabharata. So now we have that opportunity in the metaverse, in the new technology, of opening Mahabharata out to people telling the Mahabharata in their own way. There was no one way. There were a million ways to tell Mahabharata, till we had to compress it to telling a story in one book or two books or three books. Now it's open again.
When you say that we can become a $100 billion industry, what do we have to do to get there?
The great thing about India is, A, free our minds.
Yeah.
Right? Two, what we have to do is we have the technology, we have the technologists, we have all of that here in India. My guess is we'll do it. We'll do it. We just have to free our minds. That's what creativity is about, is freeing your imagination.
You've worked all over the world, so you're the right person to ask this question to. How does creativity in the Indian entertainment industry compare to the world?
Compared to the rest of the world?
Compare to the rest of the world?
Well, I think we're very creative people. We are a land, we are a land of great storytellers, and we tell stories all the time. Constantly, you pick up the newspaper and you think you're reading news. No, you're reading a story. You pick up the next paper, everything is a story. We are amazing storytellers. But from a filmmaker's point of view, from the time that I say action and I say cut, I'm in the zone of filmmaking. The politics of what goes on before you can get to action and the politics of what happens after you say cut is different all over the world. So it's politics and organization that's different. If you talk, look, we're all becoming very similar to each other.
Yeah.
But I used to say this, that making a film in the West is like going to the supermarket. It's all organized. You pick up thing here and you pick up this here, pick up this here. This is my film. Making a film in India was like going to the Chor Bazaar. You never quite knew what you were getting, but there's an adventure in the chaos of Chor Bazaar. So when I went to the West, I missed that adventure. I missed the chaos of creativity, because ultimately it's out of chaos that creativity arises, not out of structure. So sometimes I find the structure of working in the West too constricting, boring. Right?
There's a story, you can tell me if it's true or not. You did the Four Feathers. which I don't think anybody thought of as a commercial subject, though you had Heath Ledger. But from what I understand, you did it because you'd never shot a cavalry charge before. You thought it was an adventure. It was going to be a lot of fun. That's fair. That's true, right?
There was another reason for me doing Four Feathers, because Four Feathers was one of the most colonial stories ever told.
It was, yes.
Four Feathers, the two versions of the films that I saw, were the most colonial films. They was irritated. They used to call the Arabs fuzzy wuzzies.
Really?
Yeah.
Actually call them that, yeah?
Yeah. So I thought, could I take their most colonial story and make it anti-colonial?
Ah, okay.
So that was it. Because it was based in history when the British troops went to save Gordon. Gordon was in Sudan.
This is Gordon of Khartoum, who later became
Yeah.
famous, yeah?
And I thought, well, he wasn't supposed to be in Sudan. What was he doing?
Yeah.
What were British troops doing in there? What were they doing? They were a colonial troops. So I just wanted to turn a very colonial film into an anti-colonial film.
Which you did. But also, people, again, you can tell me if this is wrong, say that unlike most Miramax movies, you went in and started shooting even before the script was ready, but you were able to do it because you knew how to improvise, having worked in India. Is that true?
Yeah.
It is
yeah,
true.
Yeah. But I can tell you something about Four Feathers. It was about a big battle, but it was a battle between me and the studio heads also.
Yeah, I was going to say that.
Yeah,
and
you
one of
must
the
have called
studio heads is now a person of disrepute, so we won't go.
I remember sitting with the studio heads and disagreeing with them.
Yeah.
And they said, Mr. Kapoor, if you go on like this, you'll never work in this town again. I just started to laugh. And they couldn't understand why I'm laughing. And I said, you know, guys, take care of your own destiny.
Yeah.
My destiny will take care of myself. So don't ever make those statements. And that was to Harvey Weinstein.
Yeah, I was going to say that.
So where is he
You were dealing with the biggest bully in Hollywood. Yeah, who bullied bigger actors, bigger directors, and you apparently stood up to him and told him to, well, to coin a phrase, to FO. Is that accurate?
Yeah, that's true. I love my actors though. But so when I went from here to do Elizabeth, and we didn't know who to cast Elizabeth. So on one little thing I saw Kate Blanchett. And I said, yeah, she should be Elizabeth. So I went to my producers and said, she should be Elizabeth. And my agent called me and said, Shekhar, every big actress in Hollywood wants to play Elizabeth.
Yeah.
And there's this girl called Kate Blanchett that nobody knows. And you know what? If you keep insisting on it, they'll fire you. I got a little scared. Yeah, pehli film hai, kabhi film ki nahi.
Yeah.
Haan, maine kaha, I'll call you tomorrow. In the morning, you become who you are, Punjabi sher. Got up in the morning, picked up the phone and said, let them fire me.
Really?
Yeah.
And this was like,
And
film
then we
ultimately
had
became your big break, and you were ready to walk out.
Yeah, and I refused to take any other actress. I said, I won't do the film, you have to take this girl. And they just bought my confidence. And
I
so
used to wonder how she got cast, because generally when you cast someone as Elizabeth, you go with a Shakespearean actress, somebody very English looking, somebody very British looking, and here you are finding an Australian who nobody's heard of.
No, that's not true. Nobody heard of in the film business. She was a big theatre actor in Australia.
In Australia, yeah, but you were casting the film not in Australia.
Yeah.
And her face is not like a classical Elizabeth face. It's frankly slightly pixie-like. So it was an odd decision. And yet, such is the power of your film that now when we think of Elizabeth, we think of Kate Blanchett.
I've always been good at casting actors. I've actually given a lot. I can think of six or seven major actors today who got their first break with me.
Tell me.
Eddie Redmayne.
I didn't know that. What was he in?
Oh, all these fantastic beasts. He won 3 Oscars.
Yeah, I know who he is. I mean, which of your movies was he with?
He was a small bit role of an assassin in Golden Age. And I still remember talking to Eddie Redmayne. He said, Shekhar, I'm not a good enough actor. The producer's telling me, isko nikal do, ye acha actor. Maine kaha, bhaiya, bahut acha actor hai. I had a big fight casting Heath Ledger in Four Feathers, because he wasn't that well known at that time.
And he became, I mean, A Knight's Tale, I think, was released when you were still filming, and he became a big star while you were filming.
Yeah, but I filmed before that. our Bond, Daniel Craig. Daniel Craig was in Elizabeth.
I didn't know that.
Yeah,
I can't
Daniel
remember.
Craig was in Elizabeth. He played the assassin who comes to shoot the Queen. He was there in
Really?
Elizabeth. Yeah.
Really?
The girl that plays Mrs. Presley in Elvis,
Yeah.
plays his wife, right, was in my series Will. That was her first break.
Wow.
So it's like there's an adventure in casting people that nobody knows,
Yeah.
and exploring them and giving them a chance.
But you come from India, your background, at least when you did Elizabeth, was mainly Hindi cinema. What gives you the confidence to go in there and tell these guys who've been doing this all their lives, this is the right person? I know you've never heard of such and such person, but I think he or she is right. Where does that confidence come from?
Meera Nair. She did it before I did. So she was there, right? Yeah. No, it's just, if you believe in something, you might as well believe in something. That's what I say. If I had believed in having a career, I may not have done it.
Yeah.
I've never, ever been scared of losing. I've never been scared of losing. Okay. But I've been afraid of doing somebody else's bidding and losing. At least let me lose in something doing something I believe in. Then I don't mind losing. But to lose because somebody else is telling you what to do, and then you do that, and then you lose, you'll never forgive yourself.
True. How spontaneous are you as a filmmaker? I've mentioned the Four Feathers experience, but people who shot with you say that when you go in, you have an idea, and the script is there, of what the scene should be, but you shoot it many different times in many different ways, and they're not sure which version will end up in the final cut. Is that accurate?
I've never done that. Here's what I do. I am like anything else, I plan like I'm going to war, as if the bullet can come from any time, like a general going to war. And then when I get to the set, the moment must give me the first idea. The moment has to play itself because the moment makes the film. So I find any which way to put myself into chaos. I panic. I tell myself, today, Shekhar, today they'll all find out that you were a con man. Right? So I keep telling myself all of these things so that when I get to do my first shot, I have absolutely no idea. Despite days of planning, I have absolutely no idea what to do. Because panic to me is a fundamental driver of creativity often. So when you panic, you don't know anything. All you're doing is getting your ego out of the way. You're getting your mind out of the way. And then things start to emerge. So Kate and I used to have this joke. And I say, okay, Kate, so what do you think you want to do with this shot? She says, Shekhar, you're doing it again. You're panicking yourself. I say, yeah, I don't like... Because we all believe that structure works. There is no structure. Structure is our greatest illusion. Control is our greatest illusion. There's only chaos. Everything that arises that actually makes sense and becomes huge is chaos. Creativity arises out of chaos. So for all the planning, I have to throw myself constantly into this, what you and I are doing right now. You ask me what are we going to talk about? Let's throw it into chaos. Something will come out of that. Creativity, life comes out of chaos and ends in chaos, right?
How much of the chaos is really chaos? You said that you plan them in some ways before you go on. It's other people to whom you say there is nothing ready. So is there a calculated element to the chaos?
Yeah, it has to be. You have to create it because you are spending $500,000 of somebody else's money every hour. In a big film, that's what you're doing. True. So you have to create the illusion of control. So when people say, what are you doing? You have to make sure that people think you know what you're doing. And you have to make sure that you don't know what you're doing. Right? So no wonder all of us die
so it's a sort of double bluff.
Yeah, because if I know, did Picasso know the painting that he was going to paint? Right? Now, if he knew the painting that he was going to paint, why would he paint? You only paint because you don't know. Right? You don't know. That first, each brush stroke is a moment of self-discovery. So why do art? Why leave chartered accountancy when I used to do it if there's no moment of discovery in every moment that you are creating? That's what it's all about.
Okay, interesting. It's an interesting process. I don't know any other director who works with that process. So that's pretty much your own style, huh?
I don't know, but I do. So
And it works.
yeah.
Okay, couple of questions that I didn't think you wanted to talk about. I'm going to ask them anyway. The first is, you're the first person I've interviewed, and you say to them, you know, you've had this film released, and everybody's talking about it. Let's mention the film. And you say, I don't want to talk about it.
No,
So
well,
why don't you want to talk about your new movie?
Well, it's doing really well,
Yeah.
but nobody here has seen it, right?
Yeah, but I think they're curious about it. We're now, like, as you said, in a global information age, so everyone knows Jemima Khan is involved. Everyone knows the film has created a great sensation. It's all over Twitter. My friend Satnam Sanghera, the British journalist, tweeted, I cried after seeing the film. So we're not in such a backwater in India.
Right.
We do see this stuff.
No, what's love got to do with it? The reason I wanted to do it, because the main character is a girl addicted to Tinder.
Yeah.
And I was always wondering, because all of us, all our lives, we are looking to find love. It's this great mystery that we think exists. It may not, but I think, but intimacy, the need for intimacy exists. From the time that we were born and we put on our mother's chest, that's an intimate moment. And till the way we die, we want to hold somebody's hand. That's an intimate moment. It's a lifelong search for intimacy, and we just confuse ourselves. So it was...
Hang on, I'm going to stop. You're saying that when we say that everyone is searching for love, it's not necessarily love they're searching for, it's intimacy.
It's intimacy, yeah. Because
That's
we have a fundamental desire to share. The fundamental desire of all human beings is to be intimate with something, or somebody, or with your environment. And so I was very keen to explore the story of a girl that is looking for intimacy in constant casual sex. Can you find intimacy? Can you find in love? The main character is that, as reflected against her best friend who's getting an arranged marriage. So for me, that arranged marriage became a reflection of the modern world.
Yeah.
Because I wouldn't dare be on Tinder. Sab puchenge mujhse, Shekhar Kapoor Tinder par kya kar raha hai? You know, so I wouldn't dare be on Tinder. But that's why I got attracted to that script. And that's become What's Love Got to Do with it.
And presumably you're as happy with the film as it's turned out the way everyone else is? Are you as happy with the way the film has turned out as everybody else seems to be?
I'm never happy with any film that I've ever done.
I thought you would say that.
Turned out. Ever. You can't be. And it's only when I convince myself that I can only watch my film again when I've convinced myself that I didn't make it.
Yeah.
It's not my fault. Then I can see it dispassionately. Yeah. Otherwise, you're still looking at every film, every cut, and saying, oh, this was wrong. That's not how I should have done it. That's the process of evolution. The process of creativity doesn't stop with the end of the film.
Yeah.
You know? Well, even with Van Gogh, when he painted the sunflowers, I'm told they had to snatch the painting away from him because he wanted to start off all over again. So that's the nature. Your nature as a creative person is, your creativity cannot, there's no end to the creativity. There's no end point.
And the second question, which I didn't tell you I was going to ask, but which everybody wants to know the answer to, is, are you going to make a Hindi film?
Am I going to make a Hindi film?
Yeah. Do you have a Hindi film? Is there a Hindi film in your future?
Are there any producers here? See, not one hand went up saying, Shekhar, come make a Hindi film. How many of you want me to make a Hindi film?
Well, there you are.
Eh? Really? Okay, then I'm going to make a Hindi film. I promise. I promise it. Yeah, absolutely.
That's something to look forward to. Ladies and gentlemen, Shekhar Kapoor.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much.